Hello everybody and welcome to Tinto Time. That's time of the week where I talk about all the things that Tinto Talks has been talking about. And while I have brought you on with a picture of Iberia because it looks really bloody good, we are going to be getting straight in to the Saturday building. This time we're looking at the library, which is, at first glance, you wouldn't really find too much surprising here. Of course there's going to be a library. We already know that there is going to be population literacy and that there is going to be pop promotion. However, some of the other things that the library does is news to us. It is interesting. Firstly, we have cultural influence. We do not know what this is. However, if you will allow me to speculate for just a moment, it could be something like cultures having a prestige value per culture, and that will determine what culture it is that is assimilated to in a particular location. That's complete speculation, though. I do not know that, but that would be something that I would hypothesize. We also see here the return of the institution, whether this works exactly like it does in EU4 or whether it is completely different. We have no idea, but institution growth is in fact a thing in Project Caesar, and we will be seeing it boosted by 25% in the library. Nice building. And finally, on the library, we have the confirmation of another trade good in the game, and that is masonry. This is one that we had previously not seen. And whether this is something that has been added recently to the game, and other buildings that we'd previously seen will be using masonry, or whether masonry has been in the whole time, and this is just the first time we've seen it, again, that's something we don't know. But we will keep an eye on it, and maybe we will see masonry pop up in the future. I would have expected to see it with a castle, and it wasn't there, so I'm leaning towards it being a new good that we just have, that will be retroactively inputted into previous buildings as well. That's my guess, but let me know what you think in the comments section below. Moving on, though, we have some Tinto Maps feedback, and this is huge. We're going back all the way to Tinto Maps number 1, where we're talking about Holland, but Pavia decided that they wanted to show us what it is that we had an effect on in the game, which I think is actually kind of awesome. So for starters, we have a standardized provinces names based on map feedback, and if we go back to the original Tinto map number 1, this is the province map that we saw there. And you can just tell the difference. Instead, North Holland and South Holland, instead of Noord and Zuid, or Zoud, I think it's pronounced, Roman Flanders there has been kept, and Taxandria is a new place instead of Kemptonland, etc. So, bunch of changes. I'm not sure about border changes, but maybe there are some there as well. I am not sure. Next up, we have the... I'll go down here first. Next up, we have the vegetation. People said, but this place should be this, and that place should be that. And then if we have a look at how they have changed it, this is what it used to be like. So, changes, farmlands and grasslands, forests, woods, what's the difference? Who knows? We will see just changes being made according to feedback, which is something awesome to see. Also, culture. This one was actually huge. If we have a look at what culture it used to be like, we had Dutch and Flemish, Walloon, Picard, Rhenish, Low Saxon, I think, Frisian, but now Dutch and what was it called again? Flemish, yeah. They have been both merged into Lower Franconian. We now have Ripaurian Franconian and Moselle Franconian, which is certainly very different. Rhenish has been split up quite a bit. So that is super interesting. That is a lot of changes to culture based purely on people's feedback. Westphalian is now a thing as well, instead of Low I think Low Saxon is what the comments told me it probably was, but now it's called Westphalian, and that's what I said it should have been. But what I said it should have been was purely based on my own, like, ignorance, I would say. And then finally, the goods have been reworked as well. And if we look at what goods used to be looking like, it was that. Pearls and sand, they gone. Now we got some dyes in there. All the wool here has been changed into clay and horses and all that kind of stuff. Going over absolutely every single good change is not really viable, but you can get a sense of what has changed here, and it is just great to see that the devs are taking people's feedback into account and actually showing us what our feedback is doing. That is fantastic. I will continue to show what things have changed in Project Caesar. I will continue to show that, we've changed these based on feedback, and here is the new, things that we've done because of your feedback. So if you want to keep up to date with all that, then, hit the subscribe button. That would be helping me out quite a lot. So, yeah, let us move on to some changes here, some comments within that thread. So, French subjects, are they fixed colour or changed to be similar colour as the Overlord? That is what we saw on the Spanish map thread. If we go all the way back here, and you can see just in the north, actually if I go back here, you can see them here. There are a bunch of French vassals that are coloured in blue, and we learn that, if I go to the right page, they are going that colour because of being not independent and underneath the French crown. Are countries like Andorra going to be functionally playable? Yeah, they will be really challenging and a potentially very fun campaign. Is also good to know. I think there are going to be a lot of countries in Project Caesar that are going to be absolutely torturous to play, but somebody will do it and they will succeed and everyone will think that they are amazing. Not certain if it's been asked or not, but when it comes to horses and elephant goods, I assume it means without those you can't have cavalry units. That is true, we have learned that already. Is it possible to buy elephants or own that location in Africa or India somewhere, and let's say as Castile, and then have your cavalry make use of elephants instead of horses? And will it then show those cav units riding on an elephant instead of on a horse? So no elephant units require units locally produced to be recruited. I hope that's not the same case for horses. I hope you can import horses to make cavalry. Elephants being something that you need in the province definitely makes, or I guess in the location, makes sense. But I hope for horses it is different. That would be my hope. Is Crown a dynamic name, or does it have different mechanics as opposed to the Kingdom of France and England? It is purely a dynamic name, but they have unique content related to how they worked. Sources on mercury production are hard to find past the obvious Idrija and Almaden. Climate being Mediterranean on the Atlantic coast and not Mediterranean on most of the Mediterranean coast looks very weird. And there's a certain important mercury mine in Huancavelica, for instance. And apparently that had like 30% of the world's mercury output at the time, which is kind of wild, not going to lie. And again, they're using the Köppen climate classification system for how the climates are being shown, which I think is why there is Arctic in the Pyrenees. And obviously there are more places outside of just the Mediterranean area that will have Mediterranean climate. Population map. Curious to see the population map for the Low Countries. That was already posted. We showed that before. They see Guadalquivir is semi-navigable. Is that to reach Sevilla? That is the river that goes through Sevilla. Will other rivers be somewhat navigable, or is it a one-off thing? It's a sea zone just so that they can have a proper port with Sevilla. And again, if we can go back, you can see right here that river is semi-navigable. Navigable, whatever. Purely because Sevilla is right there, and it should be a port. And now if I can go back to where I was, there it is. How many releasable nations does Iberia have? I imagine that's a lot. How could arid climate be cold? It just can be. Yeah. For Andorra, how is its political setup? Because right now, in real life, it's ruled by two princes, one from Spain and one from France. And I imagine that was the same back then. The country is currently a theocracy ruled by the Bishop of Urgel, Arnau de Leorda, and they need to do some extra work to represent it properly being under two different feudal lords. So I guess it is the same. Traxium, is a Spanish YouTuber. His village is in the game, and he's very happy with that. I'm not sure. Traxium should probably say here in the forums, doxing himself, but maybe they can talk in DMs about it. I think the placement of Gibraltar looks kind of bad if we're considering some good old British control over it in later stages of the game. Gibraltar was an important place in the 14th century. Alfonso the 11th died sieging in 1350. Very interesting stuff. Actually, I'm not sure I saw Gibraltar too much. It's just kind of there as a location. There's not much there to it, but sure. And again, find the right place. Anyone know anything about that subtropical forest in southern France? Again, it's a Köppen climate situation that we can lots of stuff in the Köppen thing. So one of the devs did send me a link to the thing that they use, the Köppen climate classification, rather than just on Wikipedia. But it's look, I'll leave that to them. They're much better at that kind of thing than me. I've been to Spain one time in my entire life, and I was about 11 years old. All I know is it was hot. It was very, very hot. Could we see if we zoom the biome in 3D? Yes, we're not ready to show the 3D map yet, and I also, later on in this video, will have a few comments to show you based on this zoom word. Because I am not a fan of zooming, changing map modes, but we'll get into that. Andorra playable nation. Will Luxembourg, Monaco, Liechtenstein, and San Marino be playable as well? Luxembourg was already in the last Tinto Maps. We've seen that already. It was not small in 1337, but an important duchy, and its ruler was the King of Bohemia. We already knew that. I think the location of Guimarães, look, I'm going to butcher that. Don't even worry about it. Should be called Braga. It was a much more important city than that place. Maybe they can have both, but they can't promise anything just yet. Fair enough. Lisbon and Setúbal are already coastal locations, so they don't need to extend the river. What is the reason that Sevilla market access doesn't reach the Moroccan location almost borders while going almost all the way into Granada? Basically, it's all to do with market access. It is a dynamic system. It depends entirely on whether this location has better market access with Sevilla or Fez or whatever it is. It's not something that is like, I think this location should be in this place, so I'm gonna do that manually. That's not the case. It is entirely dynamic and set up by game conditions, which is the way it should be. Would it really make sense for Castile and Aragon's names to start with Crown of in 1337? It's a historiographical term used after the unions of Castile and Leon on the one hand and Aragon and Barcelona on the other. So it is not a thing only after the Iberian marriage. It is a thing that existed the whole time. We'll go to the next page. Regarding the topic related to how Zaragoza is named, depending on the nation culture, will it be possible to have more culture-located names? Potentially, yes. Okay. What's the reasoning behind not representing the various military orders as on-map vassals? By 1337, all the Iberian orders functionally worked as vassals of the Iberian rulers. The most representative case might be the Portuguese Order of Christ. Maybe we'll see that, maybe we won't. Who knows? Is there a straight crossing from Algeciras to Tangier, Morocco? No. There is no straight crossing at Gibraltar. It is not a thing. That is huge. That is very, very huge news. The maritime control over the strait was very important in this period, and we have a wiki link to the Battle of the Strait, which was fought in some time. I guess just a continual struggle between two countries. 1333 here being mentioned, and yeah. The amount of control over this strait has been fought over quite a bit, so that's why Having it be just a straight crossing is not feasible at this point. Okay. In the country's map mode, we see a pinkish tag on the coast of France. It's the Lordship of Montpellier. Well, some of the later replies that first Tinto map thread be looked at. Yes, and we already saw that. Beautiful maps. A few questions. What is the name of the location between Lands and Santander? It is San Vicente de la Barquera. And they're pushing the map a little bit too much with a few of the other suggestions. Will we not get to see the true terrain map? It is not ready yet. We will see it when it is ready. Man here from Galicia throwing off a whole bunch of suggestions for Galicia, and again, just like we saw earlier on in this video, they will take your feedback into account and they will work on it if it is structured well and is, accurate. Consider most of it, including the Galician pops, although one minor comment and correction. El Bierzo and Sanabria were part of the Kingdom of Leon, not Galicia, which is clear after the 12th century, when their Meanos were under the jurisdiction of Merino Mayor de Leon. Pavia, I believe, is also Spanish, so he also knows his stuff. JN has a typo, fixed it, lovely stuff. Again, lots of feedback for Aragon, they'll go over it. Some naming inconsistency there, not too much to worry about. Ciudad Real was named Villarreal until 1420. True, they're fixing it, fair enough. You'd love to see Almadean mine represented properly. This is the mercury mine that I mentioned previously. As much as 30% of the world's production before the 19th century is bloody crazy, absolutely crazy. It doesn't feel like the name Cold Arid is correct. Again, though, it's all based on the Köppen climate classification system, and apparently that is what they're going with. But okay. Would it be possible that the map of the pops is painted in a colour so you can directly see which provinces there are more or less pops than somewhere else? It's per country, but he's taken the screenshot without any country selected. And he also says later on, there is a question about whether they can do the entire world, when you're not selecting a country, it'll show the entire world with various color grading for populations. But unfortunately, for this scenario, not unfortunately in general, unfortunately for this scenario, India and China exist, so they're so population dense there that it would make that kind of map completely useless. Does it mean that at the start of the game, Portugal and Castile start with war? I may also start in a truce. They haven't made the final decision about that yet, because they were at war in 1337. Whether, that's going to be in or not, who knows? Will it be represented in some way, the transhumancia? And if so, there will be a difference between the price of wool, since Castile had two types, sheep's, tura, and merina's, good quality. They will represent merino wool in a certain way. Okie dokie then. Cold Arid, again, it's Köppen classification, might be counterintuitive, but it is what it is. There are 133,000 inhabitants in Barcelona. It seems excessive. It's not only the city of Barcelona, but also some of the towns included in the location, like Sant Cugat, Teresa, Sabadell, etc., and the countryside. Try to use population density as a base, the complement with town and city data where possible. Why do these guys have subtropical climate? It is because the Köppen climate doodad says it is. Also, there's a microclimate, and it's been confirmed by a fellow Catalan. Fair enough. Could I have a map mode that has a color effect without selecting a country? Again, here is the issue with that. There is, however, a guy that decided to do that on his own back and make a population-colored doodad for it, and obviously it doesn't really work when you add in other areas of the world, because this 490k to 499,000, there's probably places with even more than that. I'm thinking like Bengal and the Yangtze area and all that kind of stuff, but this is what a color graded population map would potentially look like if you have selected your country here of Castile. So that's cool. I like that the community is going out their way to do stuff like this. That is very nice to see. Raise the question of why Iberian vassals are part of the country while French vassals have their own tags. It could essentially be the people who worked on Iberia are different from the people who worked on France, and they had a different standard for how, vassals versus, parts of the country integrated would happen. But here, Iberian feudalism was different from French feudalism, and that is why it is the way that it is. So deal with it, I guess. With the region really centralized in this period compared to France, Iberian feudal lords were much less powerful compared to the kings than the French ones. I would like to know if it would be possible to add the nation of Cauto Mixto. I believe this guy also commented on my video on the Tinto map, because I recognize the name of this. So shout out to Lord of Lisbon, but it is too small for the scale of the game. It is like a single village or a single town, independent town, which is cool that it's the thing, but yeah, it's far too small. What percentage of the population do minorities need to be before they show a striped? It doesn't remember it by heart, but there's not more than 5 to 10% of Sephardic population in any Iberian location. That's why they're not being shown, even though they were mentioned. Is there a map mode that shows which provinces are cities and towns? Yes, good. Please consider going back to Catholic and Sunni over Catholicism and Sunniism. They have both forms for religions. It's a one-line change to change for all of them, but they're going to talk to one of their other developers to see, because he's got language as one of his special interests. I was wondering, what was the extent of Islam and Andalusia culture already diminished that much in 1337? So there was a huge relocation of Muslim population of Andalusia after the Mudajjar rebellion in 1264. We've used the data of some fiscal censuses of the 1290s to establish how many Mudajjares were still remaining. Good to know. Morocco's never held the land. It was El Sultano Benemerin. Please correct it. It's the short name. The long name of the country is the Marinid Sultanate of Morocco, and I think he's talking literally about the bit of Iberia that Morocco is owning. What's the significance of the colours on the provincial map mode? Aragon seems to be split by crown. Is it something political or autonomy related? It is just areas. It's another geographical layer. Must be stressed that Valencia was the biggest market for Aragon instead of Barcelona, but that was already answered, and I believe I actually covered this answer in a previous video as well. They basically looked at the population numbers that they had available, and Barcelona had more population than Valencia, and that is why it is the market centre. Want this make Castile into a big yellow blob covering half of Europe by the 15th century? It will have its own set of challenges. Indeed, I know in Mayo and Texas, which starts in 1356, there is a huge civil war in Castile, and I believe, what Mayo and Texas did is it had two countries on the map at the same time. One was called Castile, and one was called Trastamara. And considering EU4 has the Trastamara dynasty in charge, I think they won in the end. But it is not something that I have too much familiarity with. I didn't actually play Castile or Trastamara in Mayo, Texas. And so I apologize. So I don't know. Will the provinces be able to change shape? Nope, they will not. There are spices being produced in Andalusia. Out of curiosity, could you elaborate? Basically, there was a thread about whether there should be spices split up into various different types. Like, for example, in the Spice Islands, nutmeg versus cinnamon versus all these other different types of spices, because nutmeg was a huge monopoly that I think the Dutch had. But they did originally have that. They had lots of different spices earlier, but at the end of the day, it was Pop gets enough spices to be happy at the end of the chain, so why add a few extra % performance cost for that? Pavi is saying here, originally there was saffron here. This is the spices that are in Granada, which was then converted into spices. We have to test a little bit more if it works, or if we need to make spices a bit more scarce in Europe. So yeah, there are spices in Europe, but it's like not the same spices as in Indonesia. So whether that needs to be split up or something to more accurately represent the need for Indonesian spices and Indian spices, etc., we'll have to see if that happens. A huge amount of comments on Galicia here, though. It's man being a bit angry that they got stuff wrong. So yeah, if you do make some suggestions on changes to be made because you're from there and you have studied it and you know that this thing might be wrong, just chill your tits. Really, they are not going to get absolutely every single thing 100% correct. And if you are, if this is your special interest, you may know more. You don't need to berate people for not getting it 100%. You could, collaborative kind of situation here would be best. Don't be a dick. I know it seems too much. Europe has 80 million population in that time, and Iberia only has tens of millions in the picture that you can see. So Wikipedia claims that there are 6 million in Iberia at the time, 1337, but the sources that they have it around the 9 million mark in the game, and of course a bunch of them are going to die from the Black Death anyway, so that's not even a worry. More feedback here from a Valencian. Related to the Morisco population in the Kingdom of Valencia. They found some maps and information. So, again, feedback. It works. Initially, there was a market in Burgos, but it was not playing very well. Again, take markets are not fixed. This could be like an Antwerpen situation where it will get its own market in the future. We will have to wait and see. Amazing maps. Really enjoyed seeing your hometown. I wish I could feel the same, but my hometown had a population of 4 in 1337, so we're probably not going to be seeing my hometown. And saying that they might add some Catalan pops in Murcia, Cartagena, etc. Will there be a way to represent the constituent parts of the Crown of Aragon on the Wars of Union? There might be. The location density in Portugal is much less than in Castile. You should at least split Figueira de la Foz from Coimbra. Basically, not really location density, but I think the province density was a little bit lower, a little bit weaker. They think it might be possible to add some more density there, though they can't make a promise. Feudalism in the Iberian Peninsula was different to the one of France and England, yes, but neither existed in an Iberian feudalism. Oh, sorry, Iberian feudalism did not exist. As for Portugal, hardly anyone could differentiate the vassals. It would not be the same for Castile, who had the Atentos Mayor. Like, lots of just feedback on whether Iberia should be unified or it should be broken up like France. And again, lots of feedback received, sent, and etc. It's surprised on the positive for all maps show actual research was put into them. The geographic details make huge diversity in Iberia justice. It's really good to see this. Because obviously I don't know, right? I'm not a historical or geographical nerd for Iberia. That's not my area of interest. But the people who do have it as an area of interest, looking at the map and saying, damn, that's actually really well done. Yeah, it's awesome to see. It's awesome to see. And of course, with Tinto being located in Spain, then there is, of course, a bit of a more a push, I guess, to get that region correct. It was also the very first region that they went over, so maybe it's a bit easier for them to get it more correct. There are quite a few Spaniards on the Tinto team, so hopefully the level of correctness follows on in various places as well. More comments back and forth with Migdo. I think he is being a little bit less angry than he was in his first comment, which is good. But yeah, more feedback on how Iberia should be represented. Are the names of Catalonia's provinces definitive? Nope, they're open to review. How did Cuenca make it to be Mediterranean climate while almost all Mediterranean coastline is cold arid? It's very weird. Also not loving the West Sevilla, East Sevilla naming. They might review that. By the way, to those of you thinking about the Azores, Madeira, and Canary Islands, they'll be shown in another Tinto Maps. Good to know. We will have some mechanics related to something. Let's see what that something is. Iberian orders. Very cool. Okay, we will have Iberian order mechanics. I like it. If Iberia has 9 million in 1337 before the Black Death, will the game be able to simulate population growth until the 1800s realistically? So, here is Johan giving them some absolute bloody information here. 40 to 60% from the Black Death 40 to 60% of the pops in Europe will die from the Black Death. That is crazy. That is absolutely insane. That is a monumental amount of carnage that we're going to suffer at the start of the Black Death. There are many other diseases that kill off pops. Smallpox in the New World, perhaps. Famine and wars are not exactly kind to population numbers either. Okay, all of this is cool, but like 40 to 60% of our pops are going to die within like 10 to 20 years of the game start. That's insane. Luckily, humans tend to enjoy making babies, citation needed, and pre-18th century adult women gave birth to 4 to 6 children on average, even with the high rate of childbirth populations tend to rise over time with those numbers, even with the 4 horsemen paying semi-regular visits. This is huge. 40 to 60% of our pops will die in the start of the game. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's absolutely madness. Curious about the state of Madeira, Azores, and Canaries. There'll be mechanics for stuff for the colonial game, I think he's talking about. Okay. Magnificent maps. I agree with that. And again, some more feedback based on the LaGuardia location, etc. Oh, good lord, that's a huge... is religion an either-or thing? Yes. If it's the second, would migration of pops be different between locations impact your religion? Yes. In that case, a percentage of pops in capital cities of Iberia would favor Judaism. There will be events related to the Sephardic minority. Locations. We're basing the location naming on locations. Good to know on that one. Terrain. You could consider changing Villafranca de Peñas from flatlands to hills. We know well El Massif de Garraf is as it's just around Sitges, where Paradox Tinto is located. They have to cross it every day as they don't live there. Understand what you mean, but given the level of detail, which is high but not so much, Villafranca del Peñades will work much better as flatlands. Again, just like I have completely personal like information on how this thing is going to be in real life, therefore I can put it in the game, is actually super valuable. I know quite a few game companies, especially when they're doing historical or geographical games, will like fly out their entire studio crew to various locations so that they can, experience them locations. But basically it's like, yeah, we live basically right here. So I know what I'm talking about. It's very funny. Iberian Peninsula at the time was much more densely covered in woods and forests compared to modern times. Might add some more vegetation here and there. We've identified some places where it's not as dense as it should be, like Cantabria. Taken into account by the late Middle Ages, much of the arable land had already been deforested. Trade map. We're not setting in the setup the locations in each market, only the market centers. The locations then automatically and organically assigned. Again, awesome. I love this. All the goods you suggest for Barcelona are manufactured, not raw materials, and then they may take into account the suggestions on Valencia. Again, I love that they're just doing this detailed feedback and back and forth. I love it. More detailed posts here that they're talking about. Another great post. And that is the end of the Tinto Maps feedback. Awesome stuff. I really enjoy seeing Tinto Maps and seeing the feedback with it, and I hope you guys do too, and there will be more of it. So again, subscribe, it's a button, like the video, that would be nice too. But anyway, let us move on to some more comments. We're going to do more of a rapid fire because I've picked out selected comments to look at. And if we go here, will the various colonies of colonial nation be grouped into an organization? No, that's a colonial nation. Again, we're talking about we're going on to the Tinto Talk 12, talking about the international organizations, though that may get a rename in the not too distant future. So colonial nations will be colonial nations and not organizations. Talking about whether things will be hard-coded, because all of the organizations are somewhat soft-coded, as in modders can play with them as they wish. So hard-coded will be a thing of the past. There will be some stuff hard-coded. Architecture, like units existing in locations belonging to countries, is hard-coded, but almost all game logic is 100% scripted, including much of the diplomacy. That is awesome to know, especially, units existing in locations. All Paradox games worth looking at are exactly the same. They have that, because it's too important. Thinking specifically of how the HRE has regional circles, and of course the Protestant Catholic leagues considered subgroups of the German states. Basically, can organizations have sub-organizations? You can belong to multiple ones, and they can be related. Guelphs and Ghibellines are some organizations, and they're only for HRE members. If you played Mayo in Texas, you will be well familiar with the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. I am probably pronouncing that horribly, but whatever. Can organizations be centralized like the HRA or native federations in EU4? They can have progress down a path. Good to know that there is some internal stuff going on with organizations. Are there alternatives to enacting the Golden Bull or variations that can be made on it? None at the moment. The Golden Bull is kind of inevitable by 1337. International Organization is a bit of a strange name. They've been trying to think of a better name for the last 2.5 years that they've had this system, and there was a whole thread about what should we rename it. My opinion is basically it's not super necessary for it to be renamed, because we're not going to be interacting with international organization. We're going to be interacting with the Holy Roman Empire, or the papacy, or this personal union, or this coalition, or this jihad, or this etc etc etc. International organization, I wouldn't be surprised if it never appeared, those words together, in the game at all. So I'm not sure it's entirely necessary to rename it. But suggestions were made that weren't terrible, like association. It's not a bad name. The Catholic Church is an association. It works. So maybe it will be changed regardless, but who knows? Will there be organizations that can somehow unify into a single state? It could be yes, but it's unique per IO, or what do we call it? Association? Whatever. If the content designer has designed it that way. Just on the tribute system in China, yuan is the payer and the tributaries are its payees. How does it benefit yuan? So the yuan gives money to its tributaries, and they get celestial authority from that. I have no idea how the celestial, tributary system in yuan worked. I did look it up while doing a podcast for 3MA on Project Caesar, and it didn't really say anything about yuan giving money away. It was more a case of the tributaries would come to yuan with gifts, and then yuan would pay them for those gifts and allow them to trade within the yuan nation. I don't know if that really, that payee system really fits with what I read, but I literally just read a paragraph of a Wikipedia article, so I'm no authority on that one. I'm a bit worried that international organizations in Tinto Talk will become a modular thing and lack of real uniqueness, just like religion in CK3. Each of them have more flavor and uniqueness than the hard-coded simpler systems of, I think this is supposed to be the past, so EU4. And also he spelled flavor wrong, so meh. But either way, yeah, it wasn't initially a worry that it would be everything under the same framework, so it'll kind of look the same, but it definitely doesn't seem to be the case. You said it's dynamic, so I suppose Islam can create a caliphate that is already set up in the game, yes? But no, only types that content designers have created will exist. This basically doesn't mean, there are going to be some that are dynamic, some have multiples, and then some that are completely unique. The HRE is completely unique. The autocephalous patriarchate, they can have multiples. Unions are dynamic, so you can have multiple unions be created during the game. But then, yes, there are some things that are unique just for this situation. You can't create them during the game, but things that have been designed can crop up. Are international organizations hard-coded or customizable? Modders can make their own easily. I absolutely love the fact that modders get so much access to so many different systems. That is fantastic news. And why is Frisia and Dithmarsh red? Because peasant republics have a special status in the HRE. Do I understand correctly that with the system I can bring other patriarchates under the Patriarch of Constantinople? Yes. Just to clarify, can we actually create organizations while playing the game, or is it only a neat design tool for the dev team and modders? It's a neat design tool for the dev team and modders to provide flavorful content. And modders can do whatever they want. I love this. I love that they're giving modders so much freedom. I am a big fan of modders. They are doing magic. Unions, a sort of defensive alliance between countries that share the same ruler. Are subject unions more free to do their own thing in the game? Can Bohemia under Luxembourg declare its own wars? And will it not automatically be called into an offensive war with an overlord? There are no subjects in a PU in Project Caesar. All countries are equal in a union. I'm not sure this is... So, I don't know about this one, because there are definitely and certainly cases where one country in a personal union under another is sort of a subsidiary, a subjugated nation. I think of, for example, when Scotland got the PU over England, because England was more powerful, Scotland became the subjugated state. I think that's going to be the case. But it's not here. There are no subjects. The countries being equal in the union. I don't know. It feels a bit weird, but we'll have to see how it plays out after a bit. Talking again about personal unions, they're like defensive alliances at best in Project Caesar. Also an interesting choice. But there are ways to make PUs integrated, so perhaps that is why it is going to go the way of more of a understandable and EU4 style personal union in the future. I'm thinking some kind of like back and forth between the countries trying to gain dominance in the personal union. Which country can have the favor of the king more? But that would be very interesting to play in that situation. But we'll see. It could be interesting. And I've gone over that one again already. Okay, can the player country call in a country which is in a PU with it into an aggressive war? Not right now, but it could be a part of a future union benefit integration that they may add during development. So I think that system is probably still being worked on, which is cool. Does this mean Project Caesar might be the first game in Paradox history to accurately represent Switzerland as a permanent military alliance of independent cities and cantons? They haven't done Switzerland flavor yet, but the Swiss Confederation is one of the reasons for us to make the system. I think this is cool. This has already been stated by Johan before, that they are only talking and confirm, like, everything that they're talking about in the Tinto talks is stuff that they already have fully in the game, working in the game that they have in front of them. And when it comes down to things that they will do, they're very open about it's not done yet, but they will do it. I think that's super cool. Instead of like, Johan is not Peter Molyneux is the best way that I can put this. He's not promising the world. He's merely explaining what they've already done, and that is awesome. Does it mean that we'll have characters in the game? I like to Imperator, because this is something that I mentioned in my own video when a character was mentioned in a bit of an offhand comment. I thought maybe that means we're going to have, character models and the whole 3D doodad. But maybe not, because the leader of the HRE was a character that ruled the country. So rulers of countries, in Johan's opinion, are called characters. So maybe we're not going to see that. Whether that's good or not depends entirely on your point of view. It could go either way, really. Talking about diplomatic relation slots versus diplomatic capacity now, and this was a bit of a back and forth for a few comments that I've linked together here. Does this mean Project Cecil will use diplomatic relations slots akin to those in EU4? Is there no chance of a diplomatic capacity or a similar system? Initially, Johan was against the capacity system. If it costs 1 slot or 6.5 capacity, it doesn't matter in the end. It's a simple change and I'm not sure which one they want at the moment. A capacity system is better because of flexibility. Under slots, it's binary whether something is free or takes up a slot. Under capacity, you have close vassals take up 4, membership in a tight organization be 6.5, guarantee of independence could be 2. Basically, a finer-grained view of how much work the foreign ministry from different relation types. Yes, but it's less obvious to the player, and it's a constant debate. People didn't like this one. They didn't like this one, and I did, in fact, give my own respectfully disagree. Because I disagree with this. I think being obvious to the player is not really something that is an advantage of slots over capacity. And while I'm loath to say, yes, Victoria 3 had a system that was good, this was a system that was good. So we'll see. I think capacity is better, especially the overall capacity pool is scalable. It abstracts the diplomatic corpus better. Think if we have 100 people working in foreign relations, we can send 10 of them to a country, blah, 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 pulling for capacity. And now Johan is leaning towards capacity. So this just shows, once again, and I will keep banging this goddamn drum because it is so important, if you have feedback and your feedback is well constructed and you feel strongly about it, write it in the comments. You can have an impact on this game. You definitely can. You can help make it the best Paradox game possible, and here's another example of that. Johan being convinced that capacities are a potentially better system than slots, and maybe now that's what we're going to get in the final game. And again, on the capacities, general consensus among the communities, different diplomatic actions and relations should have different costs. And Johan saying he thinks it should work that an alliance between France and Ulm should cost more for Ulm than for France. I would agree with that. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I like that. If that is what we're going to see, I mean, this isn't possible in a relation slot based system, but it is possible with capacities. So Johan is taking this suggestion for capacities and he's actually pulling it even further than what was initially suggested. So that is awesome. Are they abandoning the percentage chance system in previous EUs? This is about percentage chance to inherit personal unions, and it's an abomination, and it's not something Caesar will have. This is just fantastic, because that system was complete wank. It was so bad. You like the idea of the organizations a lot, but please tell me, whatever interface we have for them won't be just some generic interface. They're all unique, and they all have flavorful building blocks. Awesome. Cannot be argued with. The Ottomans become very big and start threatening the HRA. Will the European countries be able to form an Order of the Dragon or a Holy League? Yeah, it's called Coalition. It'd be nice if coalitions were flavorfully named, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So playable trade companies are confirmed? Yes. Okay, good to know that. Out of curiosity, will you have to wait a month of the game time before needing to declare war, or can you do instant day ones? So the 1 month wait is confirmed there. I like that. Day one wars are ways to cheese the AI, basically. Having to wait a month lessens the impact of that quite substantially. What happens to the High Kingship of Ireland when the whole of Ireland is controlled by England or GB? Will it be disbanded or held by the English monarch or become defunct? And this is by St. Dave, which we haven't actually read any of his comments yet, but here Johan is poking somebody who obviously has been working on that area. International organizations are not eternal and can disappear for a variety of reasons. Some will fail as soon as there are no valid leader country, whereas others are more aspirational or cultural in nature and don't necessarily need a leader to exist in the minds of its members. The High Kingship of Ireland falls under the latter. Membership, and therefore leadership, is limited to specific kinds of country, with a capital in Ireland and it will persist as long as it has members. So England can theoretically become the High King if it manages to jump through hoops to become a valid member beforehand, but if it doesn't, then the international organisation will simply fall out of existence once all its member countries become extinct. That said, its exact features are still in development, so the rules are subject to change. Awesome. I love that detailed analysis. Is the number of electors secular and electors spiritual in the hereditary fixed, or are they tied to the land? The number of both secular and ecclesiastical electors can be increased by approving further imperial laws, and they aren't fixed to land, which means that, for example, the emperor might be able to replace the electoral Palatinate of the Rhine with the electorate of Bavaria by using imperial authority. Showing what you're able to do as the emperor is awesome. I like that very much. Here, talking about the name of the Chinese subjects, it was called Feng Chen, and now it's being called Zhu Ho. I butchered that, and I apologize. But yeah, again, there is once again an example of feedback being actionable and being acted upon. Love to see it. The word referred to the European feudal vassals very specifically. This is literally it. I have that comment twice. My bad. With how versatile international organizations are, why not make it a broader diplomatic treaty that would include alliance guarantees, subjects, for example, as well with the IO mechanic. So international organizations are multiple countries, whereas treaties are bilateral only. And the treaties are entirely new and unique as well, which is very, very cool. With the fact that PUs work with the IO system, does this mean that we can recreate the IRL thing where Brandenburg was a subject of the Emperor and Elector was in personal union with Prussia, which is a Polish subject? Yes. That's kind of huge. That's kind of huge. Being able to represent that is something that Paradox Games has never been able to do. But yeah, this IO system seems to be very, very powerful. And here I have something for you, which is a bit of theory crafting, a little bit of very interesting stuff. We already saw this comment, but I just want to point it out again. Colonial and trade companies, are they an international organization or something different? They are countries. Only countries are playable entries. But what else are countries? There are also countries that don't directly own locations. Yes. And basically, what we're talking about here, sorry for moving on there, my bad, is we have been told already that there are these banking countries, the Medici, I think the Bergoni, and there was another one that I can't remember the name of. We've been told that these are landless countries. Countries that own no land. And they were referred to as countries. There are countries that don't own locations. Only countries are playable entities. Are we going to be able to play as landless countries? I will leave that up for you guys to debate in the comments whether we will be able to play landless countries, but there is a miniature crackpot theory for you that we may in fact be able to play landless countries. Maybe. Here, this is one of the last things I'm going to be looking at. The ability to not have your map mode change when you zoom in. It is something that I really dislike. I really dislike having, when I zoom in on the map, that the map will change based on my zoom level. It was in Imperator Rome, in the terrain map mode. I think that's the first place that it appeared, and because of that, I always played with the political map mode, because it didn't do it nearly as much. I had a lot of people disliking my choice to only play with political map mode, but I don't care, I was right. It looked better. But CK3 took it to a whole new level, and then Victoria 3 has done it as well, but who cares? I don't like it. I think it looks bad. I really don't like it. But I also know that people who do like it should be able to keep it. they should be able to have it if they want to. So I asked in the forums if it could be an option, and I got a really strange reply that I don't really know fit very well with what I asked. But here was asked again by Lasprune. Can we have it as an option? Can it be disabled in the menus? Can we maybe not have it? Can zooming in be changing map modes? Can that be an option? And can I have it just as map modes as per EU4? And Johan responded to this, as an option, it would be good. And this was said like less than an hour after I had recorded my video and before it had even gone up. So that was unfortunate for me, but it's fine because I'm very happy that maybe we're going to be able to get this as an option rather than completely forced on us to zoom changing map mode. I really don't like it. And yeah, I've seen that already. My bad. But this is all I have. This is the end of my Tinto responses and discussion. Tinto talks, talking about Tinto talks. And yeah, there is obviously more to come. There will be another Tinto talks on Wednesday, and we are going to be talking about, if we scroll down to the bottom, religions. We're going to be talking about the religions in the game, so that is going to be a super interesting dev diary, I'm certain of it. So if you would like to be informed as to what is being said there and also getting my opinions on it at the same time, then make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave me your comments in the comment section below. I will see you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.